Hey, my name's Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today we're going to talk about 5 musicians that Angus Young already said are some of his favorites of all time. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave your comment below, and if you want to read the article about this, you can go to the description, and you're going to find the URL. Well, the first one on the list is one of the architects, one of the godfathers of rock and roll music, who is the late legendary Chuck Berry. I mean, Chuck Berry is certainly one of the biggest influences of that generation that started to play guitar in the 60s, early 60s, mid 60s, and late 60s. That whole generation was influenced by people like Chuck Berry, and of course Angus Young also was. That famous duck walk was, first, it was first Chuck Berry who did that, and obviously he did a slow version of it, and Angus Young transformed into something different. And the interesting thing is that back in 2001, in an interview with the Rock Show with Johnny Walker on the BBC's BBC radio show, he chose Chuck Berry as his rock god. And this is what Angus Young said about Chuck. He said, Chuck Berry was probably one of the great guitar people for rock and roll. He combined a lot of elements. He combined blues, a bit of jazz, and his own unique style. He melded all these kind of different genres of music, but he seemed to bring it together and bring it out, and it came out in that rock and roll style, so plain and simple, but it was so effective. I saw him live once when I was younger. I just loved his stage presence and how he performed. He was one of those people, when he got on stage, he owned it. So it's a really interesting statement from Angus, right? Of how much Chuck influenced him, and it's just incredible. Hey, can you imagine that? Angus Young had the chance to see Chuck Berry live, man. And just a few years later, he was rocking out with ACDC, with all that powerful hard rock influenced by that music. And it's just incredible to think about that, Everybody starts somewhere, and it's really cool to see that, one of the most amazing musicians from the future decades can be next to you in a concert you go. It's just incredible. And that's the first one, who is Chuck Berry. We go to the second one, who is really different from Chuck Berry when it comes to music, who is also the late legendary Louis Armstrong. Now, Louis was a jazz musician and a trumpeter, and we're talking about Angus Young, who is one of the greatest guitarists of all time, playing hard rock music. That's a very different, they're from really different places. And it's interesting that Angus also had the chance to see Louis Armstrong playing live. And all this entire list is we did this list because we connected everything that Angus Young said over decades. So Louis Armstrong is another musician that he likes, and he's one of his favorites as well. And he said in an interview with Pace magazine in 2021 that his sister Margaret took him to see live music when he was young. She also would get them records, a lot of old blues records. So thank you, Sister Margaret, for doing that for Angus and Malcolm. And really thankful for that, because ACDC wouldn't have been the same maybe without that. And and Angus said that in an interview, that in the interview that you're gonna see here, he said she would get a whole collection of them, the old blues records, and play them. She took Malcolm and myself when we were younger to see a big open air show with Louis Armstrong. That always stuck in my mind. Maybe at the time we were so young that we didn't realize it, but then later on you realize that here was this man with this big history of music, so he was always good. So that was another very interesting experience he had that really influenced him a lot. And Louis is another artist that he likes and praised. And we go to the next one on the list. That is a contemporary of Chuck Berry, who is Little Richard, another architect and godfather of rock and roll music alongside Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, for example. And he was just a legendary musician, and he influenced a whole generation of artists. And it's another artist that Angus said he continues to listen until nowadays. He was asked by Forbes back in 2020 which kind of music he liked to listen nowadays, more than 5 decades later after ACDC was formed. And he said, Little Richard, I love that energy. Still to this day, if I want to hear rock and roll and that energy and songs that pack a punch, it's Little Richard. So Little Richard's another really artist that Angus likes. And we go to the next one on the list, who is another artist from that time, who is Buddy Holly, who tragically passed away too soon, really soon. And he died at the age of 22 in 1959 in a tragic airplane crash that also killed Richie Valens and the Big Bopper. And that was then known as the day that the music died, since we lost 3 incredible artists too soon and tragically. And Buddy Holly was an artist that Angus and Malcolm liked a lot. They had practically the same influences. They were really a tight unit, Angus and Malcolm. And Angus said that he kept playing to, he was asked how was the final years of Malcolm Young, because Malcolm had to step away from the band after he was diagnosed with dementia. And he sadly passed away in 2017 at the age of 64. And Angus was asked how was the Malcolm's final months and weeks. And Angus said he used to play music to Malcolm. He used to play the guitar for Malcolm, and they used to listen together to old records they liked. And one of those old records were from Buddy Holly, who was an artist they used to listen together when they were growing up. And we go to the final one on the list, and you're gonna see that there are artists from that time. Angus never talked that much about other, obviously he was influenced over the years, but over the decades, but his main influences came from that, because ACDC really never changed their style, right? They are the same since the first years of the band. Since the first record, ACDC is the same. They haven't changed. They continue to do the same kind of music. So, you can't really say that Angus's influences changed, because they continue the same. The sound is the same. And the final one on the list is Mr. Jerry Lee Lewis, known as the Killer. And it's another artist that Angus Young likes. And back in 2001, back in 2014, talking with VH1, he said that Jerry Lewis was one of his favorites. He said he was one of his favorite artists. And he said, when they say this guy is the killer, he was singing about balls before we did. Great balls of fire. That's what Angus said about Mr. Jerry Lee Lewis. And he was one of the artists that Angus mentioned in an interview with Rolling Stone 2001, at one of the artists that gets his toes tapping. So these are 5 artists that Angus Young said he likes over the decades that we selected and he praised, and that influenced him one way or another, more or not much, but those are artists that he praised and he likes to listen to. So now you know that really the 50s and 60s music get Angus going, he likes to listen to. And well, that's it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave your comment, and read the article below. Visit rockandrollgarage.com. Okay? See you later.